Welcome to Microsoft Community Insight podcast, where we share insights from community experts to stay up to date with Microsoft. In this podcast, we will dive into different ways to secure Fabric SQL endpoint. Today, we have a special guest called John Miner. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, Nicholas. Thank you for having me. My name's John Miner. I'm a senior data architect at Insight, which is a U.S. company. I've been a data platform for 10 years, MVP. And today we're going to be talking about securing the Fabric SQL Analytic Endpoint. And if you're curious, you can get in contact with me at john.miner@insight.com. Also, I'm an avid writer and learner, lifelong learner. You can actually see my blogs on Fabric on SQL Server Central. Steve Jones has been gracious enough to publish them. And any of the content, including today's slide deck and code, will be published on my GitHub repo. And that'll be John Miner and the number 3 because I'm the third in my line. So thanks again for having me, Nicholas.
Okay, no worries. So before we get started, I'm curious, do you want to tell us a bit about how you get started as a data platform? What interested you about data to become an MVP?
Sure, interesting. I've always been into computers. My undergraduate was in computer science and applied math. I initially started doing computer electrical engineering, but I
Okay.
found I loved more compilers and languages and databases than that. As for an MVP, I was lucky enough. I was invited from a company called that makes Web Focus, and they sent me to a user group, which was being run by Grant Fritchie at the time, and it was Rhode Island SQL Server Users Group, and we hit it off. And so he was transitioning to Redgate at the time, and they needed a leader, and I picked it up. And I started blogging and helping the community, and the rest is history. And so, yeah, I was gracious enough to be adopted to the and awarded to the MVP program. And it's a great program to be there. There's a lot of professionals who are like mind, who like learning and teaching. And, I'll definitely be sad one day in which, I will no longer be a part of that group. I'm sure eventually I will retire in my life, but I see that maybe 5 to 10 years away, not right away. So thank God.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to tell us a bit more about user group? Is it online or is it in person?
Yeah, good question. If you type or Google Rhode Island, so RI, and then Data Platform User Group, we call it DPUG. It's a meetup page. This month, Christian Cote, he's a friend of mine from Canada, will be talking about Fabric and how to get data into Fabric. Start from the top.
Yeah, that's fine. I can cut it off.
Awesome.
Cut it.
Good afternoon. My name's John Miner, and I'm a data MVP. I work for a company called Insight that's in the US, and today I'm going to be talking about securing the Fabric SQL Analytic Endpoint. Connectivity, row level security, column level security, and data masking. Okay, let's get into the objects that can be secured. There are many different types of objects in the Fabric ecosystem. Today, I'm going to focus on the lakehouse, the mirrored database, the SQL database, and the warehouse. The interesting thing is that 3 of the 4 have read-only endpoints. The SQL database actually is duplicated. There's one copy which is really OLTP, and there's another copy that's OLAP, which is a duplication of the data into Delta files. That main point, which is the database, is read-write. Same thing with the warehouse. There is no duplication because you're already in Delta Lake, but it's read-write, okay? The last 2 objects that a lot of people play with are KQL and semantic. Both of those do not have SQL Analytic endpoints, okay? So let's talk about what is a SQL Analytic endpoint. And I kind of told you a little about it. The purpose of a SQL Analytic endpoint is to allow people to query Delta tables using the T-SQL, Transact SQL language, okay? That's Microsoft's language. T-SQL commands can be defined in query objects, but not manipulate and modify the data, okay? You can create functions, views, and implement object level security. And that's what we're going to talk about today. By default, the endpoint is case sensitive, okay? So I suggest using the workspace settings to change this before you deploy anything, okay?
Okay.
Next one, connectivity. To connect to the SQL endpoint, we have to understand the protocol. The protocol is called the Tabular Data Stream, TDS, and is proprietary application layer protocol used primarily by Microsoft SQL Server and Sybase. So this has been around a long time, since I've been playing with SQL Server since 1996.
Wow.
This can be done either with the Fabric or the graphical user interface. Today we're going to use SSMS for our journey. Okay.
What does SSMS mean?
Yep, SQL Server Management Studio.
Oh,
So we're going
yes.
to get into that. So row level security. What do? We want to allow only certain groups to have access to selected rows in a table. Okay. Row level security enables you to use your group membership and execute to context to control access to rows in the database table. For instance, you can ensure that workers access only data rows that pertain to their department. So we're going to talk about sales today, okay? And there's going to be 3 different users. We're going to talk about
Yeah.
John. My middle name's Francis, so it's going to be Francis, and Robin, okay? And this can be done with, again, Fabric and the user interface. We'll get back to this. I'm going to go through all the slides because we're doing stream, and I want to make sure I get those right, and then we'll do the demos, okay? Next one, column level security. Well, column level basically is we want to hide some columns from a user, okay, to protect sensitive data. So instead of masking it, which would cover the numbers, like maybe Social Security and show the last 4, or say a value, say like total sales, we show a 0. With column level security, restricting them from actually even using it, okay? Now, when you add people to any of these objects, they have to be part of the workspace, and there's different roles, right? You have admin, member, contributor, and viewer. Okay, for column level security to work, you have to use viewer. Not only that, Microsoft's flip-flop back and forth on how this was going to implement. Initially, it was going to be a grant and just the
Yeah.
columns. But now it's a grant and a deny, okay? So we'll talk about how AI got it wrong. Okay. Dynamic data masking. Okay, we want to allow certain groups to see full context of selected files in a table while others can't see it. It'll be masked, okay? And so we'll talk about how we can implement that. And again, this can be done with both the graphical user interface and SQL Server Management Studio. There's some caveats to anything, right? One of the things that came out recently when Microsoft released Fabric about a year ago was Direct Lake. And Direct Lake is this high performance storage mode. And what happens is anytime you write to the Delta files in the lake, it automatically replicates that into the Power BI semantic model, which is your X velocity engine, right? Vertipack engine sitting there, and it's column store. And the problem is when we start using SQL role-based security like grants, denies, or we base things on views, Power BI is going to fall back from Direct Lake to Direct Query, okay? So if things start going slower, you know exactly why. And there's always trade-offs in life, right? So you have to talk to your business user and say, hey, you can either have the security on the endpoint, or you can push the security where the end user is, maybe Power BI. But again, you have to make those decisions. Last but not least, and talk about summaries, right? There is a Fabric Analytic Endpoint for 4 of the 6 main products in the system. As a designer, you can use custom views to manage data, to create or translate it, row level security, column level security, and data masking, okay, to secure the endpoint, okay? If you're a big fan of direct lake mode, then you have to understand that it might fall back to direct query, okay? And it's up to the business to dictate if the security is applied at the endpoint or at the serving layer, such as Power BI, okay? Last but not least, on the final slide, I actually took all the Microsoft documentations and converted them into tiny URLs, okay? So there's a SQL Analytic Endpoint URL, there's a tabular data stream URL, there's a Fabric products feature, which goes over the products I was talking about, and then the last 3 are the last 3 security methods we're going to talk about: row level, column level, and data masking. Okay, does that sound good?
For those who don't know, what's a direct lake? Okay.
It's direct lake mode, okay? And there's usually Power BI, and I'm not going to demo Power BI,
Yeah.
but Power BI has initially started off with import mode. So what it would do
Yeah.
is you'd say, here's a CSV, and it would import it into its storage, okay, which is based
Mm,
upon analysis services. Now, they recently went from a PBIX, which is a zip file, to a PBIP,
yeah.
or I always get the acronym wrong, but it's a project file. Now, the project file
Okay.
is all JSON. Okay, it's human readable. It can be stored in Git. The previous version, zip, would be hard to store in Git because it's binary. Okay, but what it is that direct lake mode is the way to import it, right? So initially, when you did Power BI, you either imported it or you queried. Direct query means you connect to the database and query the data, and it would pull it into memory to do something, right? Direct mode is that now this model sits in the service, right? And it's automatically getting updated when the underlying data changes.
Okay.
Okay,
Nice.
so I got a bunch of objects here. I'll go quickly over each one. So we talked about the event house, and I'm just going to click the wrong one. I'm going to click the KQL. And if you go into KQL, I just want to show you that you can import data. So for instance, today we're going to talk about the books, and I imported the books file. And it's all part of a library schema. And we got members, and we can see there's members and there's loans and there's dates. The problem is there's no endpoint, so we can't query it from external tools. Okay, so while real-time analytics is great, you cannot get to the results. Okay, next thing, Lakehouse. Well, you can load the Lakehouse. For instance, I was going to try to do this with DBT, but the livery endpoint, which is the Fabric basically controller, okay, which is this monitor, didn't like me. So what I did is I just basically said, hey, guess what? Go ahead and just drop the table, create a table based on the books, and I uploaded the books. Okay. So how do we get it? Now we have this, Spark catalog. How do we query it? Well, there's something called the LH, which is the SQL Analytics one. We also have a mirrored database here based on Northwind. We also have the Chinook database, which is a sample database from SQLite, which is on the SQL database, and then we have a warehouse, okay? So let's connect. Like I said, we're going to use the SQL Server Management tool, and let's disconnect, and I'll show you how to connect. So we're going to connect to the first one, and I'm going to say, hey, guess what? John has admin rights, and I'm going to connect to it. Now, what I want to tell you is that sometimes things take a while to be recognized or refreshed, okay? And again, this is all distributed SQL endpoint going on, okay? So we have this Northwind Access database, and I don't want to go too much into this, but I'm going to tear it down and really quickly rebuild it and show you how things go, right? So we have that going, and if you don't see me sharing, tell me, because I have two windows. I'm going to go to the Northwind database, and we can see there's no replication going on. How does open mirroring work? You create a folder and you create two files, metadata and proc case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear this down and see how long does it take for it to recognize. Okay, so I wrote a program in Python, and what it does, it just allows me to delete stuff, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to run this. Now this is using the service principal on the hood. Hopefully it wants to run. I'm running through Conda. Let's try this again. I don't know why it does that the very first one. So we can see it's going to delete everything. Okay. And now let's go here. So at this point, we still think there's tables. And if we go ahead and query it, will it bring back data? And it still brings back data. But if we go to the service, right, and hit refresh, okay, and let's hit refresh. Got it. Got it. Guess what? It noticed I pulled all the files down. So there's a process going on in which it's synchronizing, okay, the OneLake data from the storage and giving the SQL Analytic endpoint. So eventually, okay, this is going to stop working, okay? And I just want to tell you that it's all about timing, right? We'll come back to this. I'm going to let this run so I can do the rest of the demos, and then I'll show you, I'll rebuild it and it'll eventually show up, okay? So let's keep that like the easy bake oven in the back going on, and let's go to the Chinook and talk about how can we use AI nowadays, because everyone's a buzzword, but guess what? It is a good buzzword, okay? So what I can do is I did some prompting, right? I went ahead and I said, hey, AI, I have the following tables. I gave it table 1, table 2, and I said country names of Canada and US. They're considered North America, okay? Countries that are not listed are considered other countries. And I said create row level security for both tables, right? And I want to have John as a salesperson in North America. Frank, now it wasn't smart enough to know that Frank is a name, but it's Francis, is in other countries. And he came up with this. It said, hey, guess what? Create roles. A sales role 1 for John, sales role 2 for Francis, and a general role for Robin. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. And we're going to go to endpoint because we can see the SQL Analytic endpoints here. And we have all our data. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go down to security and see if there's any security. And if we go to roles, we can see there's should be no database roles. And there isn't. Well, actually, there is. But I'll delete those manually and then we'll rebuild them. And again, I was demoing this before just to make sure. So, oops. And again, sometimes it does not like me. So let's say, do a new one. Let's go back. Let's paste this in. And what we're going to do, instead of this, we're just going to change this to a drop role and see if we can get to work. And again, this is our first example of applying row level security. And what we want to do is John is a North American salesperson. He only should see sales from North America. Okay. And Francis is doing all the other countries. Okay, so it says alter row. Okay, so how about let's do this. And again, I apologize. It's just scripted all this out, but I only had a couple hours to do this, so I'm just going to drop the role. Let's see, remove the member. So he's removed. Now I can drop the table, and I'll add this to the final script. Okay. So actually, I think there's one other person on this one, which is I have a service account I was playing with. So let's make sure that count's not there.
Yeah.
And this is framework. Okay, so I'm going to drop the second one. Execute. Okay, so it doesn't like me. I'm just going to continue with this, but create 2 new ones. Okay, so we're going to create the role sales 1 and add John to it. Execute. Going to create sales 2 and add John to it. Execute. And then we're going to create the general, which already is there, right? And then we're just going to add Robin to it. Okay. Now, if we take a look, these have the roles, right? They're done. Now, how do we go ahead and apply roles level security? How do we know it's working, right? The idea about this, and I'm going to delete this and bring it back up, is we basically want to go ahead and query it using John, and he should see only a subset of those rows. That's why it's called row level security, right? And what we want to do is we want to pull it from the marked fact sales. So if we click this and make sure, yes, execute. Okay, so now I'm querying it, and guess what? I have Brazil here. That's not what I want. How do I fix that? Well, what we need to do is we need to find 2 things. We need to create a function and it says, hey, if I'm in row 1 and countries of these, then allow it go through, otherwise reject it. And if I'm row 2 and not in these countries, which would be Francis, then reject it. And if I'm anyone else, see everything, okay? And then apply it, okay? So I'm going to copy this, going to paste it, going to execute it. Oops, wrong button, but I'll do it in this window and execute, okay? Go back to this window, go to the top, and let's take a look. Let's see if it's now applying it correctly, right? Because we wanted a subset. So if we do select star from, here, guess what? Now we see only US and Canada. Awesome, right? We always want to test after we put security out. Okay, so the second thing is we want to test not only, we're going to use Francis, right? And Francis should have saw only countries that are not there. So sometimes, what it does is it's two-factor authentication. So it's going to say, hey, are you really who you think you are, right? And let's see if this is running. It's still running. Okay, so where am I going back here? So at this point, it finally, we look down here. This is John. I want to copy this. I want to go to databases. This one's going to be Frank. And now I'm going to put here. And I'm going to go to tables. And I'm going to go this guy and go to new query. Now we always want to look at the bottom window over here because this says, hey, Francis is logged in. And if we execute this one, Francis should be, why is it not doing this? Okay. I actually made changes to this, so I apologize if it doesn't work. I'm wondering if Francis is also in, I bet you $10 that Francis is, and again, this is a great way to debug it. I bet you $10 Francis was in, we had different roles, right? And so let's check. Again, is role 1, is role 2, and not in Canada and US, so it's everyone else, right? And not is role 1 0 and is role 2 0. That's both of them, right? So this one, and again, I hope you cut this out. I didn't have much time to do this demo. Where the heck is it? I wanted to alter role. Now, where's members? Okay. This is the hottest part doing live demos because you never know what's going to happen.
But it's fine because you can troubleshoot as you go. So
yeah, and please drop it afterwards when I get it. I'll say cut this, and then
yeah.
so what I'm going to do is sales role, alter role, sales role 1. There shouldn't be any Francis in sales role 1. And if you do sales role, which should have been here, that guy should be gone, and then this guy should be gone. Let's see, execute. And now let's get back to security. And again, I apologize, but roles, database roles. I just switched this over because it was doing hard coding and I didn't want to show people that's acceptable.
Okay.
And error says exception crawl. Why does it do this? It says, let's do this. Drop role. If not, I'll use the old one, which I know works, but we'll try this again. Okay, so this dropped. I don't know why. See, there's a bug in the UI that doesn't allow it. See, so now we got this, and then what I'll do is alter role. Okay, so now let's see. So is role 1 and not in Canada. So let's see. So control C. And where am I? I am in Francis, right? So I should be able to do select. And then this should say either true or false, right? And guess what? That's my problem right there. See, Francis? Francis is there, but he's saying he's not part of role 2, but is role member 2. And if I go ahead, let's see if this is even working correctly. This is John. And I'm going to do a select and change this to 1. And John should be part of 1. He is. So the question I have is, I bet you I know why. Create role sales. There you go. Right here. See? There's a bug. Okay. Found it. Sorry, guys. Okay. So let's do this again. So basically, we want to make sure that we have all our roles correctly defined. And I had a typo. So now, here we go. So the main thing, and again, after you cut this, is we go ahead and we create 2 roles or 3 roles. And people will have different things. Like, for instance, if we look, this is Francis, right? Francis should only have access to the rest of the world, not North America, right? So now I'm going to do is I'm going to run a query. And if we run this fact sales over here and run this, come on, because it highlighted 1, we can see now we're getting Brazil, right? And if we come back to here, Control A and delete, this is John. And if we run fact sales, guess what? This is row level security because John should only see, okay, just the US and Canada, which he does. And then the last one, okay, which is Robin. Robin should see everything, okay? So we're going to see this because he's not in any of those roles, and that's the query. So I'm going to do new query and make sure this is Robin, which it is. And it's picking the wrong database, so I'm going to go to SQL. I'm going to execute. And we can see now that USA and Brazil. So he sees everything. So that's the first demo, okay? So again, AI helps us other than me having a typo, which is here. We want to create a function. Okay, this is a security product. And then we want to apply the security to each one of these on the table using the correct column country. So when we log in and look at it, it applies the security, okay? If we want to reverse that, we just drop the policies and drop the functions, okay? So that's row level security. Let's look at column level security. That's the second one I want to tell you about. And that's this guy. Okay. So again, I told it, hey, I got a fact sales, and I wanted to do the following. I want no one that's not in sales to see total and unit price, everyone else to see it, okay? So I have these roles created, so I'm not going to do that. We're going to grant select 2 fact sales to both role 1 and role 2, okay? And we're going to revoke sales. Now, this is new. It used to be, hey, just grant the fields you want. That was the first go at Microsoft. Now they made it more like I thought it was going to be, which is, hey, guess what? Deny on the last 2, okay? So I'm going to copy all this. So again, this is column level. Problem with this, and I'll explain in a minute. I'm in the wrong database, so what? Okay, so I'm Robin, and maybe I just don't have rights because I'm a viewer. Need to be in John. Where's John? John's down here. And I'm going to run this one. Okay, now I applied it. Awesome. Let's take a look at it, okay? So we can apply it, but there's commands that you can use to take a look at things, right? I'm going to go down to here, and we can say, hey, let's show the rights, okay? And again, this is pre-built SQL I have. And we can see now that the general row cannot see total unit price, but can see all other fields. And everyone else can see everything plain off, right? So now we go to Francis. And if I go to Francis and do select star from that main savings table, right? It's right here, which is fact sales. Oops, I don't know why it keeps on doing that. We can see right here that I see unit price. I see total. Okay, that's good. How about if I run this in John? So if I run this in John, okay, execute. Okay, that works there too. Okay, so that's the way I expect those 2 guys, the salespeople, they should see it, right? How about Robin? Robin's an admin. She shouldn't see anything, right? So let's go take a look. So if we go down to SQL Endpoint, and again, all this code will be out in my GitHub repo if you want to grab it. So I'm bringing down tables. And from tables, we can click here and do new query. Always check up here and down here. First is where the database is, SQL Chinook database, the sample database. Robin's here, execute, and select. And guess what? It says, hey, I cannot do these 2 because I've been denied that, right? And the only way to fix that is we do select 1000, okay? And this is still going to fail, and we just comment out the 2 fields that are causing issues, okay? It's going to do that one, going to do that one, and we're going to execute. And I did the wrong one. Execute. And guess what? Now we can see that we can't see the unit price in total, and we get denies if we do that. Is there a better way to do this? Will this cause problem in Power BI? And the answer is yes, it will. If we were expecting a total in unit price and in Power BI and it didn't work, and it wasn't there, it would blow up the visuals. They would say, hey, cannot display. Is there a better way to do this? And there is, okay? Another way to do this, and let's go back to the security and undo it. So now we're in John. Gonna undo it. So undo it, go back here, and we can just revoke the privileges, okay? So it's gonna remove everything. Whoops, wrong one. Go here, this guy. And I'm gonna make sure I'm John. Gonna revoke the privileges. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a view. We wanna make sure this view is here, or if not, I'll recreate it. And it's there. And what the view is, basically we're gonna say, this is a better way to do it for Power BI. When the members roll 1 or 2, then show the total, otherwise show nulls. Problem is, like I said, Power BI would break if we didn't have those two fields. By using a security view like this, we still get the security, but again, you're going to have to deny permissions to the base table, right? And just use the view. And now, if we go ahead and we find Robin, so this is John, so let's select that view, John, so select star from, and John's going to work because he's part of one of those two groups, right? So he has unit price and he has total. Let's go to Robin. Well, let's look over here. Robin's here. And execute. Whoops, not that one, but the view, right? So I'm going to grab this guy, put him there, do a carriage return, get rid of him, and execute. And guess what? Now we get a null and a null. Okay, so that works. There's a caveat. Remember, when you use column level security, that or data masking, you have to have only viewer, and that's what Robin has. Okay. So the last one is to do data masking. Okay. And again, you can ask the same questions to your favorite AI. I said, hey, guess what? I got the sales. I have these 3 groups. Please mask. And guess what? It came back and said, hey, guess what? I got masking. Now the default says for that, put a 0 in. Okay. So let's put it back here and let's run this. So we say add mask with default, add mask with default. And then guess what? This is restricting everyone except for sales 1 and 2. Okay. Why did it not fact sales? Because maybe because it doesn't. Let's try this. Yep, so hang on. So object, because it doesn't exist. It should exist. So it says data mart, fact sales. Oh, I'm in Robin again. And guess what? Robin has no privileges. So sorry about that. Very important to pay attention where I am. So this is John. And again, let's run these, execute. Okay, so guess what? John should see everything now again. So I'm going to do this guy, execute. And John sees, hey, quantity and unit price. Let's go back to Robin. So at the bottom over here. And then the last demo, we'll see if it rebuilt. If it didn't, I will do it really quickly. So this is Robin because we can see the connection with Robin. So I'm going to new query it, paste it in, and do a select star from, execute. And we can see now the default is 0, so it's masking. Okay, so we did all 3. And the last thing I want to show you is, hey, sometimes things take a while to get into the SQL Analytic Endpoint, right? So we can see right now, this should have smart enough to tore this down. And if maybe I have to resume replication for this to work. I don't remember which one. But it should, yep, it did. See right here? now understands that there's no records here because I restarted replication. Okay. And we're just going to finish up with, hey, guess what? Things take a while to get to the endpoint. And then we're done.
Nice.
Hopefully you learned a few things today, Nicholas.
Yeah.
So let me disconnect out of these two. Let's go back to John, who's an admin, right? And we were looking at the mirroring, right? And we said sometimes it takes a while for it to figure it out, right? And if we hit refresh, it probably should have cleaned everything else. And it looks like it's taken a while. Well, still doesn't think it's there. Let's see. Hopefully this replicates. And then this will go away, and then eventually when, okay, so see right here, it doesn't understand where the file is. Even though it's showing me the metadata and saying, hey, I think there's a table there, there's no table there because it's been deleted, right? Let's keep on refreshing and then rebuild. Come on. Okay, well, this will eventually take a minute or two. The problem is there's really no SLA, they say, on this, so I don't know when. What I'm going to do is stop the replication. Sometimes you stop and start it, it will just suddenly show up again. So, got it. It's a little fragile. I do want to do this last demo and then we'll be done. And I appreciate your time. Let's try this again. Shouldn't be any data there.
Yeah, it's loading. There's data.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to close out of this. Okay. And I'm going to close out of this. And sometimes, maybe I just got it in a weird state because I had SSMS open talking to it.
Okay.
And replication going on. Shouldn't have to do this, but I would get limited time. I just want to make sure it rebuilds. So
yeah,
I'm going to start it. And then once it says running, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into the Northwind, which is a open mirroring. And then if we hit refresh, it still thinks it's there. I am going to start the replication. And let's see if the replication. And again, this is not about securing anything with this. It's more about one of the things you have to worry about the endpoint is data eventually shows up, especially with mirroring. It's not going to happen right away, right? So DBO, see, and it still thinks that there's tables here, and we know there isn't tables because, see, it says an error. So, and we know there isn't tables because it has to be files here, right? And all the files have been removed. So eventually it should delete these.
There's no files.
Yeah, the way replication works is this. When you do open mirroring, you have to go ahead and create a folder for each file. Then you have to give it the metadata, tell it where the primary key is, and then you start loading Parquet files. First one has no row indicators. The second one does. So the first one's a full load. The second one is your insert, update, and deletes. And what I was just trying to show you is this takes a little while to start, but maybe I'm having a rainy day today. So let me go to the SQL Analytic Endpoint. Sometimes it shows up there quicker than here.
Okay.
Because it, behind the scenes tried to querying it, and this is the GUI which eventually shows up. You're going to cut this anyway. So how's London doing? It's nice this time of year or what? Still rainy?
I think it's like summer weather, 17 degrees. Yeah. So,
17 Fahrenheit.
Celsius.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah, because
otherwise it would be very cold. Okay, so look, see, it didn't show up an endpoint, but guess what? All my tables are dropped now. Week after, I'm talking about different ways to do replication, including the new one, 2025, has something called change stream. So we can see, okay, so this is the problem. I'm an idiot. Well,
I didn't know that you can use Python with the SQL.
It's just talking to it, but again, I'm not an idiot, but I'm an idiot because I'm trying to do too much in this demo. I should have stuck to the ones. Let me show you really quickly what was wrong. We'll fix it. So the problem is that it needs to put a file out 01 and it's putting out a file 02 because I ran this yesterday to test it and I forgot to clear it out before testing it. So, and I recorded this for the Power BI Summit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go in here, and this is open mirroring. And there's something called data, right? And we want to keep the metadata, but we want to get rid of everything else, right? And we want to keep the database, right? So if we hit delete, okay, and now what I need to do is I'm going to stop the replication. And then what I'm going to do is, the easiest way to do this is just run all three again. And please cut it. So on this, we talked about tearing it down, right? And the action delete will tear it down. So we're going to put this here and we're going to save it and then we're going to run it. And this is going to tear down my framework. Then we're going to push the metadata, which is fine. And then we're going to push the data and we should get a 001 this time. So now we got the metadata and we dropped it all. So if we go look and see, it actually has some data here, but then if we close this and hit refresh, this should have went away. Got it. Okay, so it's gone. So next thing we're going to do, and again, Python is just a way to actually do mirroring. They call it open mirroring, but it's just basically uploading Parquet files because Delta is based upon Parquet, right? And that's how it is. It's column store database. So now I'm going to create the landing zone. I'm going to go right to pushing the metadata because I know that works. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a look, and now see we have metadata but no data, right? And we want the very first data this time. And then we'll look at the final endpoint, and then I apologize, but you got a little cutting to do. Okay, so now see we're doing 01, see? Yeah. And it's a totally different file format. The very first one is a full load without any row indicators, and I guess if you don't get there, it doesn't actually do anything. And you can see it's creating it underneath the data folder too. So if we go now, hopefully to here, and hit refresh, hopefully tables are starting to show up, or maybe it finishes. It says stopped, so I don't know why it stopped it, but I'm going to start it again, hit refresh. And again, some of the endpoints go quicker than others. The one that probably takes the longest is mirroring. The other one's pretty instantaneous. This one's open mirroring, and there's really no SLA they gave anyone. So it's kind of like one of the things I like to show people because, your data will eventually show up. It might not be right away, though. So let's just get this endpoint, and we'll call it a day. Come on. Come on, there you go. So now we got tables, and now do we have data? Maybe not yet. Nope.
Yeah.
So now it's still thinking. It created the tables, but now the question is, will there be data? And if we looked, we can see that there is a data file there, right? Data, but it hasn't populated yet, right? And the question is that the tables haven't even shown up in OneLake yet, right?
Well,
but behind the scene, go ahead.
Is it the replication that it takes a while? No, there's data.
Yep, but now guess what? Here the data is, right?
Yeah.
And so it's going through it. This one might not be loaded yet. Let's take a look. Yep, it loaded. So that's the end. So again, like I said, 3 ways to wrap up, 3 ways to apply security. We got row level security, column level security. Worry about column level security with Power BI. You might want to use the view. There's data masking, and guess what? If you're using replication like open mirroring, things might take longer than you think. So again, Nicholas, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, no worries. So thanks a lot for joining this episode, John. So hopefully everyone knows how important it is to secure your Fabric SQL and how you can and you learn something about debt reputation. So
Exactly. Just
okay,
a little to show you that it takes a while for it to happen.
yeah,
Um, it's definitely one of those things. And yeah, please edit it because, real-time demos are tough.
yeah, no worries. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, Nicholas.